You need food, you need water, you need shelter, and you need to take care of yourself. Bree here, and today I'm going to be busting some common self-care myths that I have seen. So, if you've been watching me for any length of time, you know that I talk about self-care a lot. Self-care is very important to me. I think it's very important for everyone, but there's still a lot of myths circulating about it. So I decided to look up some of the most common myths and to give you a new perspective on them. So number one, I think this is the most common, is self-care just means a spa day and a bubble bath, a bath bomb, a face mask, just that kind of stuff. And to be fair, all the times you've heard me talk about self-care, that's probably one of the things I've said the most because it's one of my favorite ways to practice self-care, but it's not the only way. Self-care is literally anything you do to take care of yourself. That's why it's called self-care. It can be going for a walk to spend some time in nature and get moving. It can be learning something new. It can be just setting aside time to relax after a long day. And self-care, it looks different for every person depending on how you can best care for yourself. So number two is self-care is just for women. Men can do it. It's not a manly thing. And I think this myth is really connected to the first one, since there's that preconceived notion that it's just like bubble baths and spa day, and that's not really considered a manly thing. And I know society can put pressure on men to be all macho and be above anything to deal with emotions, but that does not change the fact that men need to take care of themselves too. Sure, it might look different. It might be, I'm trying to think of like a stereotypical guy thing, working on your car because that brings you joy, or going on a camping trip just to get away for a weekend. Like I said, it looks different for everyone, but that everyone includes guys. And speaking of that word everyone, another myth I saw, not everyone needs it. You know, it's like the last point. Some people think it's only for women. Some people think it's only for people who struggle with mental health. And I get where that comes from, but at the same time, you need food, you need water, you need shelter, and you need to take care of yourself. Like, I feel like a lot of it comes from the wording, and if you just change around the wording, the answer becomes obvious. So instead of saying, do I need to practice self-care, ask, do I need to take care of myself? Because I think that has a pretty obvious answer. So myth number 4, it costs money. I guess some people use the excuse that they don't have money to do self-care, so that's why they don't do it. But self-care does not have to cost you anything. I mentioned before, self-care can just be going for a walk. It can, even if you don't want to go for a whole walk, just stepping outside to soak up sunshine, that helps a lot. It can be just sitting down and making a list of your goals, or journaling, or doing some yoga at home that you can just look up on YouTube. None of that costs anything. Number 5, it's indulgent and selfish. And this is something I used to really struggle with. I felt like it was so selfish to focus on me. I had to be all about everyone else around me. I couldn't care about myself because that was selfish, and that's just not true. I'm sure you've heard the saying before, you can't pour from an empty cup. Maybe you're like me and you heard it so many times you got tired of it. But it is true. I couldn't sit here building a community where we all lift each other up if I didn't lift myself up first. For one, it would be incredibly hypocritical, and for two, I just wouldn't have the energy for it. You need to take care of yourself first. Otherwise, you're gonna be useless, honestly. Number 6, it's just about things that make you feel good. And this can be taken one of two ways. It can be, ooh, this makes me feel good, so it's self-care, when it's actually something unhealthy. So unhealthy things can make you feel good. That does not make it self-care, because self-care in its definition is health and wellness. So if it's drugs and alcohol that make you feel good for a limited time, that's not taking care of yourself. So that does not fall under self-care. And on the other side of that, it's honestly not always about things that make you feel good. Sometimes self-care is doing the hard things that you don't want to do. Setting boundaries, cleaning the house, going through Instagram and unfollowing accounts that bring you down. I did that recently and it was a chore to do, but it was good for me. Number 7, it's always hard work. So despite what I literally just said, it's not always hard work. And you may be saying, yeah, I know, I thought it was all spa days 5 minutes ago, but let me just say, as an adult with a lot of responsibilities, setting aside the time to prep and enjoy a full-blown spa day, it can seem like a lot of work. I have actually made the excuse, I'm like, oh, I would really like to just relax in the bath, but I don't feel like standing around waiting for it to fill up and picking a bath bomb and then drying off afterwards. That's all too much work. And that may sound really stupid, but it's the truth. And self-care isn't all things that require those extra steps and extra prep time and any amount of work at all. It could be something as simple as putting on a TV show that puts you in a good mood and just binging it. My go-to is Markiplier. I'll just sit down on the couch and binge watch his videos. And it takes no effort. It can also be something like, ooh, hey, I feel like I look good today. I'm gonna snap a picture of it. Because I wanna remember feeling this way. I wanna remember thinking I look good when I don't always think that. I want to have this picture to look back on. Number 8, it takes a lot of time. And I feel like this is heavily related to number 7. I think a lot of people don't realize some of the things that they do every day can be classified as self-care. It's just about doing it with the right mindsets. Like getting out of bed sometimes is really hard for me, but I will sometimes be like, okay, I'm going to get out of bed because I want to take care of myself. I want to get up and work out because it makes me feel good. Or taking a hot shower and just focusing on how it feels. Sending a short text to someone you love just for that connection. Even just making it a point to think of things that make you smile throughout the day. Self-care does not have to be complicated at all. Number 9, self-care gets in the way of life. And like I just said, self-care is a part of life and it actually helps you to be more productive. And yes, sometimes it does involve setting aside a chunk of time for yourself. But we'll go back to the whole you can't pour from an empty cup. If you don't set aside that time now, you'll end up feeling burnt out and losing a lot more time than you would have by just setting aside some time earlier. So it's really better in the long run. Number 10, it's tedious or boring. This is my thought whenever my therapist tells me to journal. It just seems so tedious. I do not want to set aside the time in my day to sit down and just write about my feelings. So what I started doing instead is I have an app that asks me to reflect on my day at the end of every day. And sometimes it's just something short, like, yeah, I had a good day. I recorded videos, I cuddled with my cat, it was great. But sometimes I end up just writing my thoughts and a whole bunch of things will come flooding out just naturally. And that doesn't seem tedious to me. So if you're looking at an element of self-care that seems too tedious or boring, maybe it's not the best way for you to take care of yourself. Like I said, everyone needs something different. And if it is something that's really important, maybe you can approach it from a different angle like I did. Because I do believe journaling is important and it does help me to process my emotions. I just had to find a way where it didn't seem as tedious to me. Number 11, you only need it sometimes. And I remember towards the beginning of my therapy journey, I asked my therapist how often I should be doing self-care because she talked about how it was important. I was like, okay, yeah, I probably do need to start trying to do the self-care thing. So like, should I jot it down in my planner like once, twice a week, maybe every other week, once a month? How much time should I be allotting? And she just looks at me and she's like, this is an everyday thing. And I'm like, oh. But when you think about it, it makes sense. You should always take care of yourself. Like, taking care of yourself should be an everyday thing. If someone is pushing your boundaries, you should stand up for yourself. If you're tired, you should rest. You should always be in tune with your body and what it needs and what you need to do to care for it. Number 12, you have to earn it. And like I just said, a lot of self-care is just being in tune with yourself and giving yourself what you need in the moments. That's not something that you have to earn. You don't have to earn the right to be healthy, right? And taking care of yourself is just a part of that. Now, sometimes self-care can look like, okay, I have to finish this work thing or school thing, and I'm really having trouble, so once I finish this, I will treat myself to ice cream because I want ice cream, and that will motivate me to do this. But that's not earning the self-care of ice cream. That entire conversation in itself, giving yourself the motivation to do what you need to do, that is self-care itself. Getting done the things you need to get done is a part of self-care. Number 13, it means choosing between yourself and others. I feel like this comes up a lot when the conversation turns to setting boundaries. But really, setting boundaries is the opposite of that. Setting boundaries means you want that person in your life. You don't want to dread spending time with them, and you don't want to feel mentally and emotionally drained by doing so. So you're making the honestly hard choice to make it work for the both of you. And even if we're not talking about setting boundaries, it's okay to say no in order to focus on yourself every now and again. The people who care about you will understand that, and they'll want you to take care of yourself. Number 14, it's babying yourself. Hi, I'm a millennial. I'm from the snowflake generation, where we were told we're too sensitive. So now we're scared to do anything to take care of our own mental well-being. But we do need to take care of ourselves. And this was honestly the hardest for me to defend because it's so ingrained in my generation. All I can say is doing what you need to do to live a healthy life, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, that's not babying yourself. It's just caring for your own well-being, and it is essential. Number 15, self-help is self-care. So, okay, when I saw this myth, I was like, well, isn't it? Then I started looking into it, and I found some really good points. Self-help is about fixing yourself, changing yourself to be, quote, better. And sure, self-improvement can be a part of self-care, but self-help comes from the approach of there's something wrong with you, and you need to follow these rules to fix it. Self-care is about loving and accepting yourself as you are and encouraging growth in a way that works for you, that develops naturally from loving yourself. Natural and personal growth is very different from, if you follow these 10 easy steps, you can go from a boring nobody to someone successful. Now, I'm sure there's a good self-help book out there. I'm not knocking all self-help books, but I think that pretty much every time, self-care takes a much healthier approach. What are your favorite ways to practice self-care? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave a like, and if you want to keep watching, there should be another video popping up right here. If you haven't, be sure to subscribe to become a part of the Ineffable community, because you are ineffable.